It's a beautiful day today too, outside. Very nice, not stormy at all. Huh?
Are you being sarcastic?
That we have to be in
depend on
here.
where you are. Yeah.
Why? Is it bad where you are?
It's been cloudy all afternoon, but we did get sun yesterday, so that was nice.
Well, it was nice and sunny when I was out a couple hours ago, but it still looks like sunny.
Good afternoon, everybody. We're just giving people a few seconds to get logged in here. It's the top of the hour. I want to thank everybody for coming in and joining, attending our 2021 education webinar series. Today, we've got an informative session for you. We're going to have Jeff Bratcher from FirstNet, Garett Doyle from AT&T, talking about the deployment of their networks. So get ready for an informative event. First thing I'm going to do is take care of some housekeeping items. Everyone today will be on mute. You guys won't have your videos on. If you'd like to ask some questions, we would encourage that. Please put that in the chat below. I'll be monitoring the chat section and asking questions throughout the presentations. Remember that we are going to be sharing a promo code at the end of our webinar today. What that will do will allow you early access to purchase individual and team player golfer sales at our Colorado Wireless event that'll be happening here in July. So stay on the line and be on the lookout for that. I am Paul Fanos. I am the communications chair here at Colorado Wireless. And want to thank all of our annual sponsors and Viavi Solutions for being our event sponsor today. It's sponsorships like yours that allow us to put on these events that hopefully will be good for our members. So with that, we're going to start today with some Colorado Wireless updates, and I'm going to introduce you to Karen Clark. She's our Colorado Wireless Association Vice President, and she's going to be sharing some things with you this afternoon.
Hello, everyone. It's so nice of you to join us for this COWA webinar. We have a great one lined up today, but first I wanted to give you an update on COWA activities now that things are opening up and we are meeting in person. The golf tournament is in full swing, will be held on July 15th, and we're excited about it. The sponsorships are all sold out. Golf spots will go on sale tomorrow, and I'm sure they'll go fast. The other next thing is the Top Golf event that will be Wednesday, July 14th, the night before, and everything's a go for that. We look forward to seeing everybody at our very first networking event of this year. The clay shooting event is at Kiowa Creek again on September 9th. There is a problem with the shortage of ammo right now, but hopefully that will be resolved by September. We'll let everybody know. The next education webinar will be on June 17th with George and Steve. I'm not going to give any more information away. I'm going to let Paul give you that information later. Sponsorships are available for that, so if you're interested, please contact me. Our next in-person networking event is planned for August. We don't know what day or where yet, so watch our newsletter for information about that. I want to thank Viavi for sponsoring this webinar. I want to thank all of the members of the board and the committees for all the work that they've done with the Colorado Wireless, and that's what makes it so successful. I want to thank Paul for hosting this webinar, and I'm handing it back to you, Paul.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
So next, we'd like to allow our sponsor today to say a few words about their company. Viavi provides test and measurement solutions for service providers, network equipment manufacturers, enterprise applications, and contractors around the world. It's the only company that offers a full line of test and measurement for 5G, from antenna alignment, fiber, XHAL, and RF test. Viavi stands alone in providing all of the required 5G testing, turn-up, maintenance, and troubleshooting complex networks. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Don Stash. He's a wireless program manager at Viavi, and he's going to tell you guys a little bit about his company.
Yeah, for those who don't know, and thank you, Paul, thank you, Karen. Viavi really tries to cover a technology from a test and measurement perspective, from the lab through manufacturing into field deployment and then on to optimization. And we do that for 5G in a couple of ways. We help ensure that 5G from the start by end user simulation, application emulation in the lab, and even endpoint to endpoint network simulation testing. We really try to make sure that the equipment that's being manufactured for a technology is robust. We then help and assist companies, service providers, enterprises, and contractors through the rollout phase through test and measurement verification types. So whether it be a 4G macro site or a 5G millimeter wave site, RAN performance testing, fiber testing, or antenna alignment, Viavi really likes to focus their safety and efficiency metrics towards this 5G rollout and implementation. And then on to optimization of the 5G network. We like to help find new revenue streams for our customers. Big service providers these days are ever pressed to find more services. So we like to assist in helping with best practices and identification of new technologies that we can support them in. And with that, we'll also be at the golf event. So if you'd like to contact us in the meantime, we've got a phone number here that'll be displayed and a website. We can go that route, or you can come and have a discussion with us at the golf event. And with that, I'll hand it back to Paul.
Thank you. We look forward to seeing you there. Yeah, please go check out Viavi. They were very generous in sponsoring this event today, and we thank you again for doing that. Okay, so we've got two presenters today. I'm going to give you guys a little bit of an introduction to both of them. I'm not going to read the entire paragraph. It was at the specific request of Jeff, but he does work for FirstNet. He's the Chief Network and Technology Officer. He's the key leader involved with shaping the technology for the nationwide public safety broadband network. And he did lead the formation of the FirstNet Authority technology teams. So we're excited to have him on board to talk about their deployment plans. And second we have with us is Garett Doyle. Garett Doyle is with AT&T in their FirstNet program. He's the regional manager of that program in the Rocky Mountain states. And he's been in the telecommunication service industry for 10 plus years with AT&T. So we're very excited to have both of them here. With that, I'm going to kick this over to Jeff. I'd like you to go ahead and bring up your presentation so we can begin diving into it.
Okay, thank you, Paul. You hear me okay?
I can.
Get this going. Let me know when it's up.
Yep.
Great. So thank you, Paul. Thank you, Karen, for having me today to speak to you all and give you an update on FirstNet. Appreciate the opportunity, and for all of those of you listening, again, my name's Jeff Bratcher. I am based here locally in Boulder, Colorado. I've been with FirstNet since its almost inception. So I started in November of 2013. For those that aren't familiar with FirstNet, this is our innovation and test lab that's based in Boulder, Colorado, where my main office is. Glad that COVID is relaxing now. I was actually in the office yesterday without masks. So we're slowly reopening on the federal government side, and was in the office yesterday with our CEO, Ed Parkinson, looking at some of the enhancements we're putting in now. If you'd like some more information, there's a YouTube link that will be in the slide deck that you can get an overview of our lab. And we have about 50 staff based out of the Boulder office. Our main office is in Reston, Virginia, right outside of Dulles Airport. We have about 50 staff there. And then we have about half of our 200 staff are distributed across the country in different regions, working directly with public safety. This facility that you're seeing here, we are focused on testing those differentiated features for public safety. And this was a charge by our board to verify these features for public safety on the nationwide network. And we're testing these key features. I will also mention we have Viavi in our lab, some of their test equipment. That is not an official federal government endorsement, but we do have purchased their equipment and are using it in our lab. So thank you, Viavi, for sponsoring this as well. Some of the key areas we're focused on within the lab, again, the dedicated core features, the radio access network development with band 14, the apps and device enhancement, working with NIST and the Public Safety Communications Research Program on a lot of their challenges that they're doing focused on public safety communications. Our standards leadership, so the legislation required FirstNet to be the voice of public safety needs within the 3GPP and other standards bodies. So we have a dedicated team that focuses on that in those worldwide standards development organizations. And then the additional products and services and working on that with the FirstNet customers, with AT&T, and you'll hear more about that later in the presentation, and also with Garett's presentation coming up. I'd like to refresh and look back. So both Garett and I are listed in this, are shown in this picture. So this was back in December of 2017 with Governor Hickenlooper at the time at the signing ceremony when Colorado chose to opt in and allow the FirstNet Authority and AT&T build out the radio access network for the nationwide public safety broadband network here in Colorado. So going back to the legislation, it had an alternative for the states to build their own radio access networks. So we spent about the first 9 months of the contract with AT&T, which we signed in March of 17, developing those state plans and presenting those to the different states and governors. I was very honored I was able to attend. Next to me on my left in the picture was our chairwoman, Sue Swenson, at the time. So that was a very exciting ceremony. We got to go down to the courthouse and meet Governor Hickenlooper. And as they signed and decided they would allow AT&T and the FirstNet Authority to deploy the radio access network of the nationwide public safety broadband network. So I'll give a recap of our partnership with AT&T, and you'll see different logos. For those that aren't familiar with FirstNet, you'll see these different logos out there. On the left is the FirstNet Authority, and that is where I work. I am a federal government employee. We are an independent agency within the Department of Commerce, the National Telecommunications and Information Administration. So that is where we reside in the executive branch. We are responsible for the contract oversight and validation, and that legislation actually created us and a governance mechanism, a 15-member board of directors that oversee and direct all of our activities related to the nationwide public safety broadband network. We develop the requirements in concert with public safety. We have a strong technical team that are doing really that trust but verify activity for the nationwide network that AT&T is building as part of this contract requirement. And again, driving that innovation. This is a 25-year contract with AT&T for the nationwide public safety broadband network. And you'll see the website listed there. FirstNet.gov is the authority website. You can find all the other information related to the authority and what we're focused on. On the right side, you'll see the FirstNet built with AT&T logo. That is the AT&T service brand. Garett will be talking about this and its specifics here in Colorado after my presentation. As part of the contract, they're responsible for the nationwide dedicated core deployment. So we have a dedicated network core for the FirstNet network and the radio access network build out, leveraging the licensed band 14 spectrum that we were allotted as part of the legislation that was signed. They are responsible for the adoption and customer care. They have a dedicated security operations center, the mission critical services, introducing those and ensuring those are working in the network, and then pushing the OEMs and getting the application and device ecosystems, a broad array of those for the FirstNet network. And then you see the FirstNet.com website. So that's where you can find all the information related to service plans, coverage, and the actual FirstNet service that public safety can subscribe to. And in the center, you'll see public safety, law enforcement, fire, EMS, emergency management, and public safety telecommunicators. Those are the mission we're here to serve and provide the communication capabilities for them. The next slide is an update. And I believe I was talking with Karen at the beginning of this. It was February of 2020 when we last talked to the Colorado Wireless Association. We're tremendously happy with the success. This is the numbers as of the most recent end of second quarter 2021 AT&T earnings statement. So we have the dedicated deployable assets. We have over 160 applications in our catalog, over 750 deployments for the deployable systems that we have in place. And I'll touch on those again in a minute. So the over 210 FirstNet ready devices. These are the devices that include our band 14 spectrum and can be used on the FirstNet network. AT&T is ahead of schedule on the deployment on a nationwide perspective of the radio access network. They're approaching greater than 90% now on that band 14 build out. And more importantly, there's over 2.2 million connections on the network now. And we're only 4 years into this contract. So we're very happy with the growth and the adoption and public safety choosing to join and subscribe to FirstNet. And that represents over 16,000 public safety agencies across the United States and territories. So we aren't just sitting on our laurels, though. We are actually advancing the FirstNet network. The legislation required us to do that with the funding that we are receiving from AT&T as part of our business model and partnership. And the way we are doing that is really following this model here, where we engage directly with public safety entities, with our advisory council, our public safety advisory committee that we host, with industry and with other government agencies to understand those trends and drivers for public safety. Then we develop and promote those broadband needs and the roadmap that we've developed that shows where we want to take this network in the future. That leads to our investment in the network. And you may ask, well, how do you reinvest in this network? And I'm going to touch on that on the next slide. And then back with collaboration with public safety to explain the operational benefits of the new features and services working hand in hand with AT&T. To touch on the investment, so within the legislation, and this is an actual snapshot here on the left side of the investment and the mandate in the legislation that requires the FirstNet Authority to reinvest all of our funds outside those that are needed for our operations back into enhancing the nationwide public safety broadband network. So we take that very seriously. The business model arrangement is basically a lease agreement with AT&T, where they have full and dedicated access to band 14, which is our nationwide territory license spectrum to use for the FirstNet network, as well as to use within their commercial network. So commercial users can use band 14 in those times when it's not required or in a priority and preemption mode for public safety to be able to use that. So that's how we are now reinvesting in the network. And we're following, again, that engagement model with our stakeholders. What are their priorities for this network as we have users now understanding their needs? And we are now using that investment funding to do that in concert with our FirstNet Authority roadmap. Our roadmap contains 6 different domains, and that is available on our website if you're interested on how those domains are broken out with core, the radio access network, our voice communications, our situational awareness, enhanced location services, and some of the user enhancements as well. And then our investment decisions. Those adhere to our legislation that I showed earlier, and again, are guided by our investment principles and what we worked with our board to develop in the public safety community. And again, aligning to the FirstNet roadmap. We've made 2 further investments beyond the initial contract now into the FirstNet network. And these were approved last year in 2020 via our board and investment processes. And the 2 investments are, number 1, expanding our deployables fleet that is dedicated to FirstNet. And the second is enhancing our dedicated FirstNet core to allow 5G network capabilities as well. So I'll touch briefly on the first investment. So the current fleet of deployables that we have are 76 dedicated deployables to FirstNet subscribers. There are 72 SAT-Colts, satellite-based cell site on light trucks. There are 3 flying cell site on wings or flying cows. And you see these in the pictures here as I go down the list here. And 1 aerostat. This is also known as FirstNet 1. So that's a great asset that AT&T actually built and brought to the network and are using it now in disaster areas. Our investment is to expand this fleet, and we're going to include new form factors and other options based on our feedback and work with public safety for those requesting FirstNet subscribing agencies. Again, this deployables program has been a tremendous success, and there is no additional cost to the FirstNet subscribers. There is a dedicated hotline where they can call into the help desk and request the support of a deployable asset in their times of crisis or planned events. The second investment I'd like to touch on that was approved and we are implementing now is enhancing our FirstNet core for 5G capabilities. So as of earlier this month, no, it was April, we announced that FirstNet subscribers now have access to AT&T's 5G millimeter wave spectrum in parts of 38 cities and more than 20 venues across the country. This is a multi-phase, multi-year journey that we started officially this year and we will deliver that full 5G capability on FirstNet for public safety. As public safety has told us time and again, they do not want to be on the bleeding edge, but they do want to be fast followers, and they want this network to evolve as the wireless commercial industry evolves their networks. And we will have more markets and availability of 5G for FirstNet as AT&T continues to deploy 5G across the country. This is a brief slide on some more recent announcements. I'm not going to go into these. I don't want to steal Garett's thunder. So Garett will be talking on these in his presentation coming up, so stay tuned. Lastly, I'd like to show some direct Colorado impacts and how FirstNet has supported some of the issues and fires that have happened over the last year here in Colorado. What I'm showing here is an actual picture that I took. I went and visited one of the SAT Colts in operation and in deployment. The little red circle is where this SAT Colt was located west of Fort Collins. So this SAT Colt was put in place in support of some brush clearing and fire mitigation crews that needed to have communication capabilities when they came back to their base camp. And that's what's around this FirstNet SAT Colt deployable, was the base camp for that. I did not go up to an active fire. I'm clear to tell my bosses and everyone I did not put myself in danger, but it was a great insight for me to see one of these in action in here in Colorado that was requested by one of the agencies that were performing the brush clearing. I believe it was the National Forest Service at the time, BLM. So I wanted to share that with this audience. And then also I took some information on the Cameron Peak fire. And again, this was in October of 2020 for that we're all very aware of some of the fire. I am giving full credit to this information to Don Patterson. So we actually had Don come in and speak to the FirstNet Authority staff last month. And he is a firefighter communications lead in Berthoud, Colorado, out of their fire protection district. He was heavily involved in Cameron Peak. His role was really to bring the internet in the woods. And he oversaw all the cellular deployables and their use during the Cameron Peak fire, all the planning, ordering, and management and demobilization of those assets. It's very satisfying for myself and the FirstNet Authority staff, and I'm sure I speak for Garett and his team, being able to see the support FirstNet has brought to events like this. And when disasters happen, they're able to bring communications where they need them. So that concludes my connectivity, my presentation. I'd also like to highlight Tracy Murdoch's information that's listed on this slide. She is, Colorado is one of her states, again, working directly with public safety. Tracy is the direct link to FirstNet Authority and the FirstNet network for us here in Colorado. And I want to thank Tracy for her support in developing these slides and the presentation. Again, I'm also based here in Boulder, Colorado. My contact info is listed. Please reach out if you're ever in the Boulder area and you're back to normal. I'll be happy to walk you through the lab. So with this, I think I'll thank everyone. I'm going to turn it back to you, Paul, at this time.
Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate that. Just wanted to remind everyone while we're in between presenters, if you do have any questions that you'd like to ask, feel free to put it in the chat. I'm monitoring that and I can ask those here live to get those answered for everybody. So before we have Garett come on, Garett would like us to present this video. It's a 3-minute video for us to listen to. So please listen in.
In February of 2015, the FIS, which is the Federation of International Skiing, hosted the World Alpine Ski Championships here in Vail and Beaver Creek. That brought people from all over the world here, from many, many countries, athletes from many countries. We knew that with the limited staff that we have here for fire and police and paramedics, that we needed to be very well organized. I've been hearing through IACP about this band class 14 thing, and I said, would that work in our mountain community? Because if it worked here, it would work anywhere.
We're at the top of Vail Pass on I-70, over 10,000 feet. Interstate 70 splits the county north-south. We've got one highway that runs the opposite direction, just a little bit over 1,600 square miles. Pretty mountainous terrain, primarily rural.
we were able to test the band class 14 concept, in which we utilized the equipment and that spectrum to be able to do video surveillance and share intelligence, share data, and be able to tie our local radio system into a push-to-talk app on the phones, which we were able then to bring everybody together to have a common communications plan.
Eventually that turned into FirstNet. After having used it and the opportunity to see what was there, our agency started moving towards FirstNet for the same reasons that we all look at: the reliability, the connectivity, the security. All of our work phones are on FirstNet. A number of our personal phones are on FirstNet. Our in-car computers are using the FirstNet network for their data connections. Even though we're in a rural area, we still have all the same services and technologies that any agency is going to use. They're going to open up the dispatch program, and you're going to open up your records management system so you can look people up. We've got the biometric data we can use to identify individuals in the field. We've got fingerprint scanners that we use. We need to know that those lines of communication are going to be open and they're going to be secure.
The FirstNet devices that we at Chips on Fire utilize currently are cell phones. We have a Sonum RD kit, the Vocality interoperability kit, numerous hotspots, and a cradle point, as well as a Microsoft Surface Pro X used as our mobile data terminal and our engine. Additionally, because we are a FirstNet customer, whenever there's an outage or a critical communication need, we have the ability to ask for support for deployables to include a site on wheels or some other portable cell site, and to no cost to us.
The biggest benefit for the Vail Police Department and really for the entire county is our ability to communicate with each other. We work really closely with the hospital to ensure we're providing good support. We have officers in the mountain working with the ski patrol to make sure people are safe and secure up on the mountain. We work with many other agencies to make sure that we're providing great customer service in a world-class environment. I have the opportunity to work closely with the IACP and be a member of that organization, and I'm excited about the opportunities that FirstNet presents for agencies across our country to be more successful in the way we do the work in preventing crime and making our communities safer.
Awesome. And with that, Garett, I'd like to open it up to you. Feel free to share your presentation at this time.
Well, good afternoon. I'll do a quick sound check. Can get a thumbs up if Paul, if you can hear me. Excellent. Well, thanks, Paul. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Tracy and Karen, for this opportunity for us to be able to share this afternoon and provide an additional update on FirstNet. I'm Garett Doyle. I live in Golden, Colorado, right down by Green Mountain, and I can say as a citizen of this community for the past 25 years that first responders do make a difference every day in our lives. I've been evacuated twice due to Green Mountain catching on fire, and I can just tell you how important communications is and how critical it is. And it's exciting to be a part of FirstNet, and it's exciting that so many of the key developments from FirstNet have come out of Colorado right here in our home area. We already talked a little bit about this, but I want to kind of do a quick catch up. FirstNet is the only public safety platform that was mandated by Congress and is dedicated to first responders and the support of first responders. While I appreciate AT&T's marketing prowess and ability to promote product, this is not one of those situations where this is just a marketing program. This is really the network that first responders asked for. This is the one that Congress set up, and AT&T is the proud partner that was selected to build that. I joined the program at the beginning of 2017, right before AT&T's award was announced as being the contractor. And I always like to kind of use the example, it's no different than a jet fighter or another tank that gets built for the Department of Defense. These are not owned by the contractor. This is really the federal government and the first responder community's answer to a mission critical broadband communication platform, and we're just proud to be a part of that. But AT&T's experience in this literally goes back decades, if not a century, with all the way back into the originations of call boxes in Chicago, Chicago and the first 911 calls being placed on AT&T's network. But, we have made some significant strides, and we're not talking about slideware now. We're actually talking about a product that's available and being used every day. I think it's important that we kind of look and see what are some of those core fundamentals of FirstNet. You can dig into the RFP response that Jeff has that is pages and pages deep, but what we are really talking about is a network that has prioritized access. One of the things that first responders need is confidence that it doesn't matter what's going on in their community, that the network, even if it's saturated, is going to work. Whether that's at a concert because there's a lot of people there taking selfies and burning up the bandwidth, whether that's a town being evacuated due to wildland fires, or whether it's because I-70 is closed and everybody is stopped in Georgetown and they can't, and they're using up all the bandwidth. First responders and those that support them need to have access. They need to have prioritization on that network. Second is security and resiliency. And one of the things that when we first started talking about security and security operations centers, I got a lot of eye rolls. But after I drove down to King Soopers the other day and I couldn't get gas, I'm starting to realize, yeah, that's pretty important, right? Because, we had a cyber attack that took out part of our critical infrastructure back east this past week. And we've seen hospitals be attacked. We've seen cities and counties. And FirstNet is the first network that is offering end-to-end encryption across a broadband communications platform like this. And that's truly amazing. The other thing is coverage. It is super important that not only do we have cool features like prioritization and end-to-end encryption, but that it's available in the town, in the community, in the rural area, and in the urban areas where it's needed. And AT&T has done a great job of building out a nationwide LTE network, but when we followed the normal BAU process, we didn't always build to some of the areas that where first responders are needing it. For example, I'm excited to say we're really close to launching a service in Glenwood Canyon, being the first time we've ever seen cellular communication going through that corridor. Took a long time and a lot of money to build that road, and I can say that I'm excited to say that FirstNet's leading the charge to make sure that we have communications in important corridors like that. The other thing is no data throttling. One of the things that first responders can't have happen is their network gets slowed down just because they've come across an arbitrary limit. You saw Chief Kirkland in that video that was just shown out at Gypsum Fire, and he had his primary connection at their fire station go down due to a local fiber cut, and they were able to take their hotspot, plug it in, and run the whole fire station off of that until service was restored. And they pushed over 50 gigs of data across that in less than 24 hours. No throttling when first responders need it. We also realized that they need to have a fast network experience. And then last, we certainly need it to be affordable. Our public safety communities can't afford $500 hammers. They need to have an affordable rate plan that is on par or less than what they can get from other commercial providers. So just to kind of wrap it up, it's really easy. It's coverage, it's capabilities, and it's cost. That's what first responders need with FirstNet. So how do we deliver those key features? And it's really done across these pillars. We already talked about security, but the way we do that is we have a physically separate core. Many of you are experts when it comes to network, realize that the real foundation for a broadband cellular network is that core data center or data centers that exist. And one of the things that was really clear is that needed to be separate and distinct from the commercial network. And that gives us the ability with a separate PLMN to actually have unique features like end-to-end encryption, to be able to provide true, not just priority, but preemption, meaning moving commercial traffic, moving commercial users to the side so that first responders have first right of access, first right of bandwidth, first right of network resources. And it's coverage. We talked a little bit about that. The great news is we're continuing to expand that coverage. And coverage comes in a couple of different flavors. Sometimes it's those macro cell sites that many of you are involved with building and deploying. It's small cells, but it is also in-building solutions. It's also deployables. It is also other types of services that we haven't even thought about yet to enhance coverage across the United States. It's also devices. What we also heard loud and clear is that there's going to be a lot of use cases when it comes to public safety. Whether that is a phone that can be dipped into bleach so that it can be disinfected after being at a vaccination site for a month or two, or whether it's something waterproof that can be used by our fire crews, or whether it is a tablet that needs to be used in a healthcare environment. We have a wide range of devices, and they're also at affordable prices so that we can meet the individual use cases. Control. What I really think it's unique about FirstNet on the control side, it's been a game changer for us, even as AT&T as a carrier. We are giving levels of control to users and visibility that like none other, meaning we have a portal for customers that they can log into, and they can actually zoom down to the street level. They can zoom down and see if cell sites are up and down in their community. We've heard repeatedly how that is so critical for first responders as they are responding to large incidents, that they can understand that and understand what's going on in their network and in their communities around them. And then last is innovation. Innovation really is going to make sure that this program continues to move forward for decades upon decades. FirstNet is not a flash in the pan. It is ever evolving. It will never be done. It will always be being built. We were with Jeff Bratcher. Jeff, I'm trying to remember when that was, down at West Metro Fire, when we were doing Z-Access testing about a year and a half or 2 years ago. Do you remember that, Jeff?
Yep.
And at that time, we were just looking at the possibilities of what Z-Access could do, and now that's been realized, and I'll show you that here on a future slide. Well, one of the questions I often get is, well, who can be involved with FirstNet? And what I'm excited about this is we have really two groups. We have the primary and extended primary. Primary is when you call 911, who's going to be involved in providing you assistance. First, it's going to start at the PSAP and with the telecommunicators and the dispatch location. And then it's going to go out to law enforcement, fire, EMS, ER docs, and then if it's a large emergency, probably the emergency management. Those people need priority and preemption all the time. They don't want to push a button. They don't want to call and request it. They want their device, their iPhone, to work every single time with that features enabled. But one of the things that we also realize too is extended primary are important, because when there's a down power line in the middle of the road, the fire department is not going to be the one that shuts that off or tests to see if it's live. They're going to call upon the utility. When the water line is broke, they're calling on the water department. When there's a mass evacuation going on with because of a hurricane, they're working with school buses to get the folks out of that community into a safe situation. So we really have two user groups that are primary and extended that are going to be involved. Primary, you call 911. Extended primary, who does the first responder call when they need assistance? The other thing is we also realize there's kind of two subgroups of users on how they pay their bill. Agency paid, that means their agency buys and provides their phone. And that is a super important part of servicing the first responder community. But one of the things we have out west, especially here in Colorado, is we have a lot of volunteer firefighters. 80% of Colorado is volunteer firefighters. City of Golden, where I live, is still largely serviced by volunteer firefighters. And we needed to make sure that they could get access to this network. So they can go down to a store, provide their credentials or their agency information, and sign up and get the same priority and preemption as their agency phone has, even though they're a volunteer and they pay for their own. So this is kind of a different version of the infographic that Jeff shared from the federal perspective, and this is a little bit from the AT&T perspective. And we have over 2 million subscribers connected to the network, as we mentioned earlier. But one of the things I want people to realize is 15,000 agencies use FirstNet every single day for their communications. This isn't the break glass in case there's an emergency. This is FirstNet being on their phone every single day and operational. They have signed up for FirstNet. They have a FirstNet SIM inserted into their phone, and this is what they use as their daily communication driver. And they may be getting priority and preemption multiple times a day. They wouldn't even necessarily know it. It just works. And that's what first responders are looking for. The other thing I want to point out is the expansion of the network. We continue to build out, and we mentioned on this slide over 100,000 new LTE miles added, square miles added. And just to give you perspective, Colorado is about 100,000 square miles. So really over that last year, we added an entire state's worth of coverage. And that is also due to the partnerships that we have with our rural providers, with our turf vendors, with all of our different OEM partners and RAN partners, B partners, all those different important elements that have come together to build that. We mentioned the need for over 750 deployable requests, and I'm going to dive into a couple of examples here in a second. But before we talk about deployables, what are we bringing to the program today, and what is coming out tomorrow? What's coming out that just launched is FirstNet Mega Range, and this is our high-powered user equipment offer. I'm going to dive in deeper on the next slide and explain what that means. The next one is FirstNet Z Access, which is the one I mentioned before. We're all used to being able to get location information off of a GPS, so we get the lat long. But FirstNet has launched Z Access, so we know from a vertical reference where they're at. So think about that firefighter in downtown Denver that is, you can locate them, but all you know is that they're in Republic Plaza. Well, what floor of that 50-plus skyscraper are they on? Z Access is a way for them to be able to see that. We're seeing these new innovative technologies like that. And when Jeff and I were out at West Metro Fire doing the testing, just having that Z Access information was able to reduce the search for a downed firefighter by orders of magnitude because of the accuracy of that information. FirstNet LMR interoperability. One of the things we're seeing is the intersection of narrowband LMR voice communication with broadband mission critical communication. So that's the ability to take that LMR radio, that two-way radio that you see belted on a lot of public safety, and have it communicate to a cell phone device that has push to talk over wireless broadband enabled. And we continue to see that pushed and developed. You saw on there as well, Eagle County has been using that and expanding that. And one of the things that was really important to them for Chief Kirkland was he was able to continue to participate in his LMR radio system when he was stuck on the other side of Glenwood Canyon during the Grizzly Peak fire, because he had a broadband device that was connected to his LMR network. The FirstNet Compact Rapid Deployable, one of the things we've also heard is it's great that you have a large FirstNet fleet of deployables that we can call on, but we have agencies that want to have their own. And because of this unique licensing of Band 14 being ubiquitous across the country, we are now able to have customer-owned and deployed assets that they can roll out. We just sold one to a fire department here recently in the Idaho area, and they're excited to be having that available to them for this upcoming wildland fire season. We are enhancing the FirstNet messaging platform as well with added security and proof of delivery and other cool features. So let's go back to the FirstNet Mega Range. As many of you know, a cell phone has a power limit of just over about 1/4 of a watt. And one of the challenges that we see is on the uplink side of that. you get a cell site that can broadcast at 100 watts, you can get to that edge of the cell network. You might have one bar on your phone, but you can't communicate because it can't establish an uplink connection. FirstNet Mega Range is, because of the unique spectrum licensing, we are able to offer a full watt higher transmission on the uplink with these trunk mount modems. And that translates into our customers in the field being able to have greater range and greater reliability and greater performance when they're on those fringe areas of coverage, which obviously here in Colorado, we've got plenty of opportunity to find the edges of our cell phone networks. What's great about that, that's available today. That's something that only the FirstNet program has to offer because of the unique spectrum licensing that's available. I also wanted to show you the CRD, and so you could get a little bit of a visualization. The compact rapid deployable is this type of device that can literally go in the back of the SUV or on the hitch of the SUV and can be rolled out in literally minutes, instead of taking maybe hours to get a FirstNet deployable rolled out. So we often think of this as one that might get rolled out for initial command and control before that fire camp is set up and made available. So FirstNet is innovating not just in the coverage, but it's also innovating in the types of solutions that are being made available. FirstNet deployments that have happened around Colorado have included the ones up at Grizzly Peak Fire, the Cameron Peak, East Troublesome Fire. It's included the search and rescue a type of activity for missing persons that happened down in El Paso County, assisting in a major crime investigation outside of Alamosa, which unfortunately turned into a significant murder investigation where out in an extremely rural area. But we've also supported events like the Aspen Jazz Festival when their town in that area can get overrun, and the first responders in that community needed to make sure that they had a viable solution in case there was not coverage and or capacity constraints. So what's exciting is FirstNet is here. FirstNet is a viable alternative to commercial cellular services for first responders and for the community that supports them. And we're really a proud partner to be able to offer this service, and my team to be able to support that. But that really is kind of wraps up things for me. So I'm going to turn it back over to Paul. Paul, I'm not sure we can hear you.
You know, you'd think after a year of living through COVID and the Zoom fatigue that we've had, that you'd remember to unmute yourself when you need to start talking. So that's where I'm at. I wanted to let both of you know that we do have several questions. They're not necessarily aimed at any one of you. So if either one would like to jump in and answer, that would be greatly appreciated.
Sure.
First question is, how will continued FirstNet 5G enhancement affect expansion into new applications and or types of deployables? And then how are they funded?
Yeah, I'll take the first crack at that one, and Garett can add to it. So great question. As I alluded to in my presentation, we have started those initial 5G investments for the FirstNet network. Again, public safety wants us to be fast followers with this network that supports their needs. We are doing a lot of work and consultation now, and I know AT&T is as well, on what does 5G look for public safety services, for those law enforcement, fire, EMS. And we have a very strong application developer program that's seen a lot of success and support in developing those unique applications focused on public safety's needs. As far as the investment, that's what the business model is very unique about this public-private partnership with AT&T. The FirstNet Authority, the government agency that I work for in the federal government, we get $0 from appropriations through Congress. All of our funding is self-sustaining. The law allowed us $7 billion from spectrum auctions in 2014 to go entice, build the RFP, get a partner that can help bring this network to bear across the country. And that's what AT&T stepped up to the plate to do. And the life of this contract, as I mentioned, is 25 years. There are payments to AT&T and from AT&T as part of our self-sustaining business model. And as I showed on the slide, all of those dollars coming into the FirstNet Authority are required by law to be reinvested in this network. We cover our costs for our operational needs as a government agency. Anything above and beyond that is invested right back into the network. So we've started this phase 1 of 5G, getting access to those 5G capabilities where it's available. The next phase will be transitioning band 14, our core, to the full 5G in the next few years. Garrett, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I want to make sure we hit with 5G is not just can we go faster than 4G. 5G is about moving some of the edge moving computing out to the edge. And as that begins to happen, that is going to provide some unique capabilities that have not been able to be realized because of lower latency. So whether that is in the VR space, whether that is in self-driving drone type of activities, also increasing performance when it comes to push to talk or push to X type of technology. That's where 5G is going to change on the application side. Obviously, speeds continue to come with that. But for me personally, getting some of the computing out to the edge is going to be really critical. Think about real-time processing of video happening instead of being at the core. Jeff, anything you want to add? Or are we good?
No, that's great. Thanks, Garrett. I think that answered it, Paul.
Yeah. Next question is, how does FirstNet prioritize the users?
I've got a graphic that shows this, I think. If they have a FirstNet SIM, it's built in. And one thing to note, again, not everyone can just walk in and get a FirstNet SIM. There is a validation mechanism on public safety and your eligibility to be a FirstNet user with priority and preemption. The priority and preemption features have been in the standards since 2G, since the early days of 2G. What we were able to do with the legislation and the funding and with the partnership with AT&T is create a consolidated market for those features to be built into the RAN products by the vendors. So those priority and preemption standards have been there. That is being implemented now, so that we have those two really classes of users, the primary users, so the law enforcement, fire, EMS, telecommunicators, those really primary public safety, and then that extended primary that supports public safety. I thought Garrett did a great job explaining those two groups of FirstNet users that are eligible, and there is a verification process for your eligibility and use of FirstNet. But all of that is done behind the scenes, and that's what Garrett was getting at. You walk in, and if you're eligible, you get the black FirstNet SIM. That gives you access to band 14 and the devices, and all that priority and preemption happens seamlessly in the network. Garrett, anything you'd add?
Yeah, I would also add that prioritization is a broad subject that happens at a lot of little levels, because we are able to do that by how we slice everything from spectrum resources to backhaul resources to having a separate core, and then also on how we exit the network. And so it's not just a little flip of a switch, it is an entire architecture that gives you that QoS that you need. It's not simply just getting first in line. And so that happens all the way from the time you turn your phone on and it registers to the network, all the way to when you're trying to connect back to a dispatch center.
And I would add to that, Paul, that's the reason the Boulder Lab and what we have in place in Boulder is to verify that work. So when we were first proposing this, when we had just awarded to AT&T, our chairwoman of the board, Susan Swinson, that was in the picture, she directed me, she said, Jeff, prove it. Prove that this priority and preemption works. So we've invested in load testers and other equipment in that Boulder Lab to prove priority and preemption works, public safety gets the resources and bandwidth when they need it, and sheds those commercial users to other bands or off the network if need be. So that's a part of that validation process that we perform up in Boulder. We trust AT&T, but we do the verification as well.
We trust the federal government.
Thank you for answering that, both of you. Before I ask the next question, I noticed an attendee did raise their hand. If you do have a question, please write it in the chat so I can ask it aloud, since we aren't able to unmute everybody. The next question is, how will 5G change the network, and when will the FirstNet operate with 5G technology?
You want to go ahead, Garett? Maybe tee up what's happening here in.
Yeah, so the good news is, we have started that launch already. So there are 5G devices that are working today across multiple markets. For example, we have millimeter wave 5G deployed down at the Ball Arena. I always want to say Pepsi Center, the Ball Arena, where that will work. And with things starting to open up, I think we will have some opportunities to see that in action. So devices like Samsung devices, iPhone, iOS devices are coming out with those. So again, we're on that same trajectory glide path that commercial networks are for getting that enhancement and getting those services going today. So those buying an iPhone 12, for example, are not going to be stranded or stuck because of that. And that's one of the real great things about this private-public partnership. It takes the best of what's available commercially, but adds the capabilities that first responders needed in order to make this a mission-critical network.
Yeah, and I'll just add to Garett's answer that we're also looking at the standards development for those mission critical services as those roll into the new 5G releases as well. So we definitely envision, the LTE network operating side by side with 5G for a little bit of time for a while as those transition over. So we're close behind the commercial sector on 5G.
Great. Well, thank you. It looks like at this time that we don't have any more questions, and we're getting close to the top of the hour, so might be a good time for us to spend a couple minutes wrapping up. With
Sure.
that, yeah, I'd like to really thank Garett Doyle and Jeff Bratcher for putting a lot of time in creating presentations and taking time out of their busy schedules to be with us today to share the updates with their deployments. So thanks to both of you for being here. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure. Nice meeting you, Paul. Thank you, Karen. Hope Dan is safe on vacation. Good to see you, Garett.
Let's hope so.
Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it. It was a great opportunity to be on here. I'm surprised nobody asked why my hair is so much grayer now than it was in the previous picture, but you can talk to me offline. You have my email address. Thanks so much.
And thank you again to Viavi Solutions for being our event sponsor today. We really appreciate you guys being involved. So with that said, the next thing that we want to do here today is we want to promote our next webinar. It will be virtual. I know, like I said earlier, we are we're having a lot of Zoom fatigue. Colorado Wireless Association has made a decision to try and give value to our followers by continuing to do things virtually until things really do open up. So our next webinar will be on June 17th. We're going to have George Karl, who's a famous basketball coach. Many people here in Denver remember him when he coached the Nuggets. And we have Stephen Kotler, who's an American journalist and author. And it's going to be a motivational speaker type presentation talking about achieving peak performance through flow state. So we're excited to have both of them. We are looking for an event sponsor for that. So if anybody on this call is interested, please get in touch with one of us. Karen Clark would be a good place to start. So we'd appreciate that. And then with that said, today brings us to the end of our webinar. And what I'm going to do lastly is I'm going to share with everybody that's attended the call. Thank you for doing so. We really appreciate your attendance here. I'm going to share with you guys the golfer promo access code. So the access code is MayWeb. It is case sensitive, so please put uppercase. Go to the Eventbrite link that you've been seeing in the newsletter and in the social media posts. With that promo code, you should be able to gain access tonight to purchase individual and team golfer sales for our July golf tournament. So we do anticipate it to sell out quickly. We did sell out all of the sponsorships very quickly. I think that there's a high demand now that things are getting back to normal. So we're really looking forward to putting on a stellar event in July. We want to see everybody at the Top Golf event the night before, now that we're getting back to normalcy, and then we want to see everyone at the golf tournament too. So with that said, that's the end of our webinar. Karen, if you have anything to add, if not, I think we're good to end it here.
No, I'm good.
Awesome. Well, thanks to the attendees and thanks to the presenters and thanks to Viavi. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, everyone.
You all.
Bye.